There's only four things that really matter when it comes down to deciding or knowing whether a renovation is going to be successful or not. I've been a designer and renovator for like over 25 years. And after all that time, I can really see the patterns in projects that are successful, like successful renovations, and projects that just like kind of don't hit the mark or sort of end up leaving people feeling really disappointed. So what are those four key things? Well, it's kind of really simple. Like, it's not rocket science. You can really break it down into just four distinct categories that I think that if you've got each one of those sorted, then it's almost like guaranteed that you're going to have a successful renovation. So the first one of those is creative spatial design. So that's like basically getting the very foundations of your renovation right. It's the drawings, it's the layout, it's how the rooms function together, it's the flow, it's the views, it's making sure that the best bits of the house are being used for the rooms that you're going to be in the most, and it's minimizing all the issues with the house, it's maximizing all the wonderful things about the house. It's also making sure that you're building the right spaces. Some people are kind of like, let's just build as much as we can. Let's push the house out there and we'll build a big extension there. And sometimes that's just not the right thing to do. Sometimes it's not best for the house. And it's issues like balance and making sure that you've got the right number of bedrooms to living areas and general flow and ease of the house. So that is absolutely essential. And I always say to people, really take time to look at that while everything's just lines on paper. It's super, super easy to change lines on paper, super easy. But once things start to be getting built, it's really hard. And literally the decisions you're making there, you're baking them into the renovation. And if you get this layer wrong, no matter what lovely fixtures and fittings you pile on top of that, the house is just not going to feel right. And, I love houses, I love looking at houses, and I go around and I look at houses, and so often I just see really poor layout decisions. It might just be that the rooms have been divided in a way where you can't place furniture nicely, or you're just like, there's really weird flow things going on. Like the other day I was in a house and you literally had to walk through this galley kitchen to get to the living room. It was the only way. And someone just hadn't thought that through. It's really disappointing. So the first pillar of success, I think, for any renovation is making sure that the spatial design works really, really well. So then once you've got that sorted and you know that that's going to be working, the next thing you move on to is taking care of the permanent layer of the decorative elements and the interior fixtures and fittings. Now, this is not about furniture and cushions and rugs and things like that. This is about the permanent layer of your renovation. I like to think of it like this. Imagine your house is a doll's house. So what you're going to do is you're going to pick up the doll's house, you're going to turn it upside down, you're going to give it a really good shake. Now, everything that falls out, your sofas, your TVs, your rugs, your artwork, your decorative items, they don't matter right now. What matters is all the stuff that stays inside. So that includes your paint, your wallpapers, your fixed flooring like carpets, tiles in the bathroom, your door handles, your door stops, anything that becomes part of the permanent layer of the renovation. And that's the kind of stuff that your builders are going to ask you for as you're renovating. And generally, this is the sort of thing that gets people super overwhelmed. I had a client on the phone to me just the other day and she was like, oh, the builders have started and I had no clue how many decisions I was going to have to make. I'm feeling super overwhelmed, and I just hear that over and over again. But these decisions are so important. I've seen so many renovations where there's beautiful drawings. The layout has been wonderfully resolved and, it could have been an amazing house, but then really poor decisions have been made in terms of the interior fixtures and fittings. Generally, the thing that lets it down is not having one cohesive overall vision for the space that pulls everything together. And just like haphazard decisions being made here and there. So, you might visit the flooring showroom, and typically, the person in the flooring showroom is going to show you some wonderful floors. And they might be wonderful, but do they work in your house? Do they work with your overall design aesthetic? What is that? And everything should be supporting everything else, not pulling it apart and not sort of like diluting it, which just seems such a shame. And there's a really, it's really easy to sort that out once you know what you're doing. So that's the permanent layer of the interior. So you've got your drawings, which are all fine. You've worked out how you're going to create that permanent layer where everything's going to feel cohesive and work as a whole and build on each other and create really beautiful spaces, both individually and collectively. So the third thing that's really important in a renovation is the process itself. So you just need to know the steps that a renovation goes through to make sure that you're doing the right thing at the right time. And so often stress and problems occur in a renovation because things are done too late, but also some things are done too early. So, I have seen people be choosing fixtures and fittings and tiles before the space is even built. And that can just be really wasteful. And there's just things that that you do at the right time. And if you follow the process, then a whole lot of problems just disappear. And along with the process is also having the right team and working with the right people and knowing who you need on that team, knowing who to pick up the phone to when you have a particular issue or you need a question answered. And I think it's really important to know that you can't be everything. So you're going to need a team of advisors and experts around you. Now, they might be formal kind of relationships. You might have an architect or a designer, or they might just be sources of knowledge where you can go to make sure that when you don't know something, you know where to go to get that information. So it's really important to know what kind of information you're going to need, what sort of expertise, and how you're going to get it as you're going through your renovation process. The process side of things also covers things like, how are you going to pay people, how do contracts work, just all the nuts and bolts. Because if you don't know that kind of stuff, it can be a bit intimidating, and it can it can really floor you, and you can kind of feel really out of control and not sure. But actually, it's actually quite simple. Once you know how, it's really simple. You just do this, you do this, and you do this, and it's like, oh, easy. And everyone's on the same, on the same page, and everyone knows how that process is going to work. Sometimes it's just a set of documents where everything is documented so everyone shares the same documents, or even a place where people can go to find the documents. So that's process. And then the fourth pillar of renovation success, which is just as important as the rest, is what I call respected resources. Now, obviously, resources, they include money, and we all know that a successful renovation is probably a renovation that doesn't go massively over budget. That's not news to anybody. And also time. We want a renovation that's going to take the amount of time we want it to take. We don't want huge project overruns. But the things that I think we don't think about often enough, which I like to think about quite a lot, is what's the emotional cost of renovation? And how do we manage those type of costs? How do we kind of budget for them? And I think, we have a budget for the monetary costs, but what about the emotional costs? And I think we don't really think about those enough. I think we think about them at a very broad level where people are saying, oh, renovating, it's so stressful, it's so awful. But if we break down the stresses of renovation, and if we understand those stresses and we expect them, and we can work towards a way of managing those, then I just think the renovation process can be so much less stressful for people. So not as overwhelming as it could be. If we know these things are coming and we've got strategies in place for what's going to happen when, Because one thing I can almost guarantee you is that you are going to be faced with challenges when you renovate. Things will not go perfectly. It's just like a little mini kind of version of life, isn't it? Problems will occur, stresses will occur. So I think it's really important that we kind of plan for those, and we understand that there's some really great ways to deal with that kind of thing, and there's some not so great ways. And the difference from those will be whether you have a really joyful renovation process or whether you have one that you would rather forget. So to me, those are the 4 different things you need to get right to have a really successful renovation. 2 of them are really based on more design and planning. Those are the ones around spatial design and the interior layer of your renovation. And then the other 2 are really based around process and the actual enjoyment of the renovation experience itself. And I just think if we can get those 4 things all working together, it's not rocket science. You can have a super successful renovation. You can create a home that you absolutely love, that feels perfect for you. And you can also increase the value of your home dramatically, and at least not detract from the value, which unfortunately a lot of renovations do. And you can just have a fantastic time getting there. The process can be creative and exciting and collaborative. And that's really what I want to spread. I want to be able to help people to have successful renovations, to enjoy them, and to create better homes at the end. So that's why I've created Renovation Success. It's a growing collection of support and tools and things that I think can help people with all those 4 different pillars. So if you're interested in that, you can check out, I will leave the website address underneath, and tune in because I'll be talking a lot more about this kind of stuff.